kind of switching to the next topic as well, because they are hand in hand. As we're talking about quarterbacks that were recommended, we also had Todd Haley make a recommendation for a quarterback. And I saw this name coming up in the chat, but he recommended Mitch Trubisky.
Yeah, Nick Babiak.
Yeah, Nick.
What do you think about Trubisky as a possible guy?
Yeah, so to give you full context, Todd Haley, for those that don't, well, everybody should know who Todd Haley is. Todd Haley, the former Steelers offensive coordinator. He was doing his own show with Sirius XM.
Okay.
Yeah. And they had essentially just asked him, like, man, what are your thoughts on the quarterback situation for the Steelers going forward? Or, his idea of how he thinks they should go about, moving in the direction after Ben. And what he had said was, I don't know if you have the quotes. All right, you go ahead and read it off.
It says, Mitch Trubisky, it's so important to put these guys in a position to succeed. And I don't know what he was given in Chicago. He was a young quarterback to begin with, hadn't played a lot. He was only a one-year starter at UNC, but his size, athletic ability to throw the football, you need to have a characteristic that allows you to survive while you learn to be a real quarterback. What I saw in the preseason with the Bills, I was pretty impressed with. I mean, he looked like a different guy. And then he went on to elaborate in Chicago how they were making him play. I mean, no disrespect to any coaches. I would watch that tape. Kurt Warner and I would do a Zoom call and watch it, and sometimes it didn't make a lot of sense. And some of the positions they were putting him in just weren't fair. On top of that, of being in Chicago, not a fun place to be as a young quarterback. I think Mitch has a chance. I just think he needs to be in the right place with the right coaches that are able to nurture him and allow him to grow and develop.
What do you thoughts on Mitch Trubisky, man?
Listen, dude, you may know a little bit more about this than me because he was up with the Bills this season. Even in, see him in the preseason a little bit. I don't know how much time he got in the regular season coming in for like garbage duty whenever Josh Allen.
He had like one or two, but I mean, he looked really good. Like it looked like a totally different version of Mitch Trubisky this year compared to everything that was shown in Chicago.
Okay, so I checked some of the highlights. I was like, okay, you know what? Yeah. I could kind of see it in terms of the arm strength, his mobility, all that type of stuff. Still not a big Trubisky guy, but if we're legitimately talking about bringing in Ryan Fitzpatrick, Gardner Minshew, sure, why not? Why not bring in Trubisky? Because you've even brought up this point to me in the past, because I've said, I'm just out on Trubisky. I'm just out. But you're like, why aren't you out on Haskins?
Right.
It's a fair point. And Trubisky wouldn't be the worst guy to bring in for a competition. I'll put it to you that way.
Yeah, so for me, like I said, watching Mitch Trubisky in Chicago, then watching him this past year in Buffalo, night and day. Thought you could really see the talent of why he was drafted in the first round when he was in Buffalo. Arm strength was on display. He even showed that he could run a little bit better than I thought he could as well when he was up in Buffalo. It's two reasons why, for me though, I say no.
Oh.
Number one, who was the offensive coordinator in Buffalo?
Dable.
So obviously Dable just got the head coaching job in New York. But we know Dable is a high-end coordinator. You can see the schematics. You can see the growth that Josh Allen has taken under him. So what do you have in him? You have an elite offensive-minded coach. That's the first reason that I wouldn't take him, because we don't have Brian Dable. Second thing, who was the guy that was talking during this quote?
Haley.
And he's another high-end offensive mind. We've seen him firsthand. We know the success he had here in Pittsburgh. He's also not here. So I'm essentially going to think that Mitch Trubisky under Brian Dable can do that same thing, but with Matt Canada and his concepts. I'm sorry, I don't view Matt Canada in any conversation with Brian Dable right now. Could it grow into that? Sure, but based off what we have seen, I don't believe that Matt Canada can develop and make Trubisky look like how he was looking in Buffalo. I think it will revert back to what he was looking like in Chicago, where you have a guy that really doesn't know how to utilize him. They don't really do the things that, even when Haley was talking, he's like, yo, some of the positions they're putting him in, it doesn't make sense. And you watch him in Buffalo in the preseason and even in some of the spot action, you're like, oh, this is a guy that understands how to highlight his strengths and weaknesses. It's a guy that has creativity. It's a guy that has just a good feel for calling it. So we said it's a difference between designing plays and actually knowing when to call the plays. I can go get you Dick LeBeau's playbook right now. Okay. I can give you that book. You will know every play in there. but you ain't gonna know when to call it. You're not gonna know when to utilize those things or which personnel to put out there with that. So that's why for me, even though I can hear the case for Mitch Trubisky, I just personally don't think that it's a match with Matt Canada. And if going back to the best thing in Matt Canada's offense is having mobile or mobility at quarterback to that level where you want to be able to do, because they talk about it like, it has to be mobile. Like, I want to see you be able to do a little something here. To me, Mitch isn't that. Like, if it's a zone read and I'm choosing between, do I honor, Najee running, or do I really think Mitch is going to pull it? I'm not honoring Mitch pulling that ball. That's part of the reason why when we talk about Matt Canada's offense, and these are some of the concepts that I've watched on tape from him in college. Remember a year ago when we talked about him getting that job, we broke down some of the things and talked about what he does well and what he struggles with. And you could see that, yes, they are lateral with his scheme, but he likes the little mobility. He wants that zone read option. And to me, Trubisky isn't giving you that.
Neither is Haskins or Mason.
But that's why we keep saying, if we're keeping this guy, how do these pieces fit with this scheme? If we're saying the reason the offense looked the way that it did was because we only had red paint. That's why for me, I'm just like, I don't want him because I just feel like we're going to be wasting the time.
Okay. So
that's my feeling.
You're saying in theory,
because I just don't think it's a match. I don't think I think like you have to have the coach and the quarterback to go together. And I just don't think that Canada can get out of Trubisky what Brian Daboll got out of Trubisky in Buffalo. I don't think that it's going to be like that. I think it's definitely going to look more so like the Chicago situation where we don't have that fit.
Right. So you're saying in theory, yes. In practicality, no. Basically.
Yes.
Because if we're talking about bringing in a dude like Minshew, why not Trubisky? Because if anything, Trubisky's more mobile than Mason.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Can do that type of stuff. But you think it's just going to be too much pomp and circumstance for a letdown?
Me personally, yes. Because we're going to highlight the fact he's a former first round pick. We're going to highlight and we're going to see him make some crazy throw. He's going to look good at times. But at the end, the fit isn't there. And if the fit isn't there,
you think it'll just be too expensive? Is that what it is?
No. I don't think it'd be too expensive. I'm just saying, like,
what does it hurt? That's my thing.
Okay, if you're saying what does it hurt, sure. I'm just saying to myself, I think that we already have that in the cupboard, or at least in that framework with Mason and Haskins. So why am I bringing another thing that's already like what we already have? If I wanted the flyer, I already took the flyer. That's my Haskins move. Yeah. He's going to get his opportunity this offseason. I want to bring something in like a Mariota that's different. Give me something that's different. Because we talked about the Dobbs thing, but okay. What's a higher end Dobbs? Mariota is a higher end version of Dobbs. Bring me that, but at least he is drastically different from Mason and Haskins. And it would hold true to this theory of the Matt Canada offense, right?
That he's the closest guy.
That's the thing. So that's why for me, I'm just like, I don't want to bring in what we already have. That's the same conversation at running back. That's why I'm always like, I don't want to bring in another thumper, a big bruiser back. No, we got Najee. Give me a speed guy. Give me somebody that can spread you out, somebody that can play in space. It's just a different element to it. So that's kind of like where I lay with that, man.
How you